Hello, everybody. My name is David Zub, and I'll be your facilitator for this program on supervised ministry and pastoral reflection. I suppose it's normal to introduce oneself. I'm about to be retired from almost 30 years of pastoral ministry. I was ordained in 97, but I worked for the church for quite some time before that. I did my education at Queen's University and then at Victoria University, Emmanuel College, after which I did a doctorate in historical theology, also at Victoria University. So my doctorate area was in self-critical theology of religion as it relates to pluralism. It's a little dusty now. It was in 2001, I think I graduated with that. I had been married for 41 years, have two children, adult daughters who are almost 40 years old, and the older one has three children, and the younger one has cats and two dogs, and lives in Halifax, or Dartmouth, rather. So this is basically just a dusting off, a first things presentation. You are all very mature students, very experienced. I don't expect I have a lot that I can tell you, but I would like to give you a few hints that may help you through the navigation of theological education. And it's entirely a voluntary session. You may not want to bother listening to all this. You've probably developed your own style by now. But when I was with Emmanuel College as a graduate student, I did hold seminars, and some of them proved to be very helpful. So again, I don't want to be patronizing. I know you're not rookies, but would like to float these, and some of it might be helpful to you. First of all, brevity is a great value in our writing and in our presentations. The more that you can pack into fewer words, the better you can present yourself. So between storytelling and illustrating, describing, between balancing yourself, such as the Gospel of Luke, and elucidating, such as any of the letters of Paul, the better you can do that if you can do it with as few words as possible. So when I was at Queen's University, I came under the scrutiny of the professor of church history, and every week we had to write an essay, and every week I got a 79.5, which is a very aggravating mark. I mean, that's a B++, but it's not an A-. So finally, after 3 times I got a 79.5, I went and talked to her, and she said, "Thank goodness, I was waiting for you." And she told me that my sentences were too long and therefore were becoming convoluted and sometimes difficult to unpack. And so her simple advice was, first of all, the first few sentences you write are totally disposable. Not everything that you write is gold. And then she said, now with computers, what I'm about to tell you is very easy. She said, don't use commas. Don't use conjunctions. No ands, no ifs, no buts. And then when you're done, edit. Add the commas, add the conjunctions later after you've written your essay with these short, pithy sentences. You'll find that this is a process that takes a little time at first, but it becomes almost automatic after a while. I can truthfully say it's helped my sermon writing, as well as other writings for publication. The second little hint I would give you is to read your work out loud, and I don't mean once or twice. Read it out loud maybe 5-6 times. Professor Knox at Queen's University again said that reading silently is actually a fairly new development, that up until probably the late 19th century, most people read everything they read out loud, even in private. As you read your work out loud, you will see errors that you won't see by reading quietly. You will also find that you will fill out, that is, you will sound like what people will hear when they're reading it. So important to read it out loud 4 or 5 times before submitting. The third point that I would make, and again I want to emphasize that I know you're not rookies, so This might be something you already know about, but when responding to a question, parse the question and stay within the walls of what is being asked. Only then, once you satisfy the question, can you venture beyond the actual limits of the question. And by that time, you might have used up your space. You might have written all that you can write. I will tell you that when I used to do ordination interviews for Toronto Conference, what was then Toronto Conference many years ago, my job was, first of all, to ask the theological questions that nobody wanted to answer. And it was part of my job also to point out to people when they weren't answering the question, which was almost all the time. By all means, learn to answer the question. Another little hint is to review your books. As you read a book, review it. You might make margin notes. You might use stickies. You might write notes in another area as you're going along, whatever. But when you're done the book, take the time to write down the biographic, or the basic information of the book that you would use in a footnote, for instance. And then when you go through the book, do so and write down in a book journal every usable or interesting or thought-provoking quote that you encountered in that book. That might be a lot of work, it might be a little work, it's always worthwhile. By handwriting it, you will employ certain neurological effects that will help you to remember it and to look it up. So that when you're writing essays, and integration in essays is essential. This is an integration program. We're going to be talking about biblical basis for pastoral reflection. We're going to be talking about doctrine. We're going to be talking about history, all those kinds of things from time to time. And good theology, whether you're doing biblical or historical or systematics, good theology is always integrative. So by handwriting it, you're going to be enabling yourself to integrate. I also want to emphasize that as you read your books, there is a good way to read a text that is not recommended in the way that we've been taught to read. So I would suggest that you learn to read the introduction and the first chapter, and then read the last chapter, and then go back and read from the first chapter again. Again, it sounds time-consuming, but what's your time worth? This will help you to integrate. The person you're reading is getting to a point. The authors are getting to a point. It is okay to read how they satisfy that point at the end and then go back and find out how they get there. And I confess I do this with mystery novels too. I enjoy knowing how they're getting to where they end up. I don't do it all the time because, it is, again, time-consuming, and who cares if I'm doing it with mystery novels. But when I read a text for review or for use, I tend to read the introduction, the first chapter, the last chapter, and then start again at the beginning of the first chapter. And you'll find that it integrates much, much better. My next offering to you will be in the form of reviewing the overall syllabus and describing some of the things that we're going to be doing over the course of our weeks together in 2019 and 2020. I hope that you enjoy this as much as I'm looking forward to it. And this is all new to me. In fact, I have no idea if this is even going to be postable when I'm done. So welcome to SMP 3000, 4000 for 2019-2020. And I trust that we will have a great time together. Bye for now.